Welcome to TMG Today. Join other master manifestors across the globe to turn your goals into reality at lightning speed. Here, we connect the dots for you so you can skip all the nonsense and finally get unstuck. Right here on the Manifestor's Guide today. Let's go.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to TMG Today, the Manifestor's Guide podcast. I am Dewey Taylor.
And I'm Charlie Carroll.
So this is the intersection of universal law success principles and leading edge science, guys. If you find value in any of these episodes, make sure that you share this to create that awesome cyclical energy flow we always talk about by providing more value into the world. I promise it will come back tenfold to you. So like, share, and subscribe. We're on YouTube and podcasting apps everywhere. Check us out on social media at Manifestor's Guide. We have got an incredible episode today, which I'm very excited to talk about, talking about later in life success. You're never too old to have a new dream, and to kind of start over. And we've got an incredible guest coming up here in a little bit, Norie Hicks, who's actually a member of our Inner Circle online community, because this podcast is an extension of that community. If you want to check that out as a part of our master manifestor system, go to manifestorsguide.com for more information. We also got great blog articles. We got a podcast page, books, all sorts of cool stuff there. But before Norie comes on, we're going to start with a community question that prompted this episode to begin with and why we asked Norie to come join us today. So Charlie, what is that question?
Yes. So our question this week is coming from Ellie D, and she's in the United Kingdom. And she says, "Hey, Manifestor's Guide, I love your content, and this is my first time to post a question. I've been reading a lot of the other members' inspirational success stories, but I'm in a slightly different position. I'm not in my 20s or 30s. In fact, this month, I'll be a whopping 60. Congratulations, Ellie.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Still, I wanted to own my own food and beverage business, but I've never allowed myself to pursue this while raising my family. While I'm at peace with my age, I'm just not sure starting over from scratch is in the cards for me. What is your advice to someone in my position? Do I have enough time to entertain those thoughts of something more, or should I just settle down and enjoy where I'm at? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you both." Oh, she's so polite, gentlemen. My goodness.
I mean, what would you expect? She's from the United Kingdom. So polite.
She is very polished.
First of all, Ellie, we haven't had the pleasure of, getting to know you one-on-one yet, but we're so excited to do that in the Inner Circle online community. And thank you for your question. I love that you've obviously been observing and listening and taking in a lot and obviously doing your system on your time. But this is what this is about, is engagement. And this is a phenomenal question. And we picked this to specifically do an episode on this podcast because, Charlie brought this question to me and I was like, this has got to be a full episode. This is not just a quick response in the community. This is a full episode because there's so many people who find themselves in this position of being past a certain age and thinking that they're done. Oh, I should have done that in my 20s. That was my time to do that. Or, oh, I'm not in my 30s anymore. I'm past 40. And you hear a lot, especially with people over 50, they find themselves in a position where they never thought they would end up right where they are. And they just didn't see their life going that way. And they feel incredibly stuck. And because of their age, they feel even more stuck because they feel like there's not enough time to do what they really wanted to do. And so, this is a much larger conversation than everything we'll get to today. But this is a great start for someone who feels as stuck as some of the people who've been in our community have felt, as stuck as Norie, who's going to come on a little bit later after the break and talk to us about. She was so incredibly stuck when she started with us. And just to see her growth, I mean, it was literally like a flower that had wilted and died and was shriveled, just completely being reborn. And she has blossomed and bloomed, and she is vibrant with color now. She is smiling. She has ideas. She has insights, brings light bulb moments to our community. And I'm so incredibly grateful that she's here with us today.
And she came to us as a big skeptic as well.
Yes, she did.
And so and to see her come out of that and blossom has been incredible. And so I'm so excited to talk to her today.
Well, that's really a false concept of this whole running out of time thing. That's not real. And that's what we're going to dive into here in a little bit. But, let me just break this down before we jump into our break. Just a couple of successful people that have started later in life. There is not a late in life. It's just later than what our expectation is. And this is why it's so important to get rid of our expectations of how things are supposed to go, right? When we get rid of that and we redefine what success is for us, and if success becomes the journey, the action of doing, the action of creating value and exchanging it into the world, it's not about the final outcome of where we end up. It's about the doing. Right there, just by jumping in and starting something and creating and being in that energy is the success. Here's a couple of people who've done that a little bit later than what we expect in life and who've been incredibly successful. Stan Lee, who has created some of our favorite superheroes like Batman, Fantastic Four. That was his first big breakout comic. He was 39 when he really started his career creating all of the superheroes that we love so much. Vera Wang, right? Fashion maven. She entered the fashion industry at age 40. A lot of people don't know that. So she started much later. Most people get into fashion when they're teenagers. She was 40 years old. Massive success. Steve Carell, he was 42 when we got to know him on The Office. 42, right? Most people say that, oh, you got to go out and become a celebrity when you're a teenager and kind of get in there because it takes 10 years to do this and that. That's not what happened for him. Samuel L. Jackson, same, 43 when he had his breakout role. Henry Ford was 45 when he founded Ford Motor Cars. Julia Childs, we know and love Julia. Meryl Streep played her in a movie. She was 50 years old, 50 when she started her culinary career. Betty White, who we know and love so much, she was 51 when she got her breakout role on Mary Tyler Moore. Arianna Huffington of the Huffington Post was 55. Colonel Sanders was 62 when he founded KFC. Other notable names, because I could go on and on and on. Sylvester Stallone, Alan Rickman, Harrison Ford, John Hamm, Morgan Freeman. These are all actors. Morgan Freeman was in his 40s before. I mean, he's one of the most prolific actors of our time and of his generation. And he did not come into the public eye until he was in his 40s, you guys. So there's absolutely life after a certain age, and it is never too late to start a new dream and to manifest from that place of power. Everybody is different on their journeys. And what we're talking to Norie about after the break is what her personal journey looked like.
Yes. And I resonate with her journey a little bit as well. I mean, you know, she came to us in her late 60s. I remember being in my early 20s and thinking I had missed all the opportunities in my life to go and be and do or become who I wanted to be. And it was it's what we teach that helped me climb out of that and why I'm super passionate about it. I know I was not alone in that, and I'm still not alone. There's plenty of people of all ages that think they have run out of opportunities or they missed their shot. And this is why I love today's episode.
I do too. And this is a really important episode. So definitely stay with us. And let me tell you guys, if you don't get anything out of this episode, which I know you're about to get a ton of value after this break, but if you don't get anything out of it, especially if you're still in your 20s or 30s, it's calm down. Take a breath.
Yes.
We got time here. And, you know, let's just give ourselves a little bit of a runway. We talked about this a few weeks ago, but give ourselves a runway to create, because it doesn't have to happen in the snap of a finger. So let's just take a breath and start enjoying our lives, because all we have is the right now.
Yes. I say, if you've got a heartbeat, you've still got life force running through you. There's plenty of time.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that very life force right after the short break, when we are joined by Norie Hicks from our Inner Circle online community. Awesome, awesome discussion. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. TMG is partnered with Podbean to bring you new episodes each week. Are you finally ready to step into your own power and let your voice be heard? Well, then why not start your very own podcast? Remember, what you find ordinary, others will find extraordinary. It's never been easier to produce and distribute your podcast to every major podcasting app available. Podbean also makes monetizing your podcast foolproof, so you can add value to the world while you're making money. Thanks to our partnership, you can try your first month absolutely free. Visit podbean.com/TMG today. That's podbean.com/TMG today.
Brain science has shown that by the time you're 7 years old, you've installed a program in your mind that you'll run for a lifetime. And for 99% of us, we're running a program of struggle. But you can change that. At TMG, we've designed a system to install this new programming to get you exactly where you want to go. With the power of brain science and multisensory learning, you'll discover your path of least resistance as you manifest your goals into reality. And for a limited time, you can try the Manifestor's Guide to Ease system absolutely risk-free. This system comes with unlimited access to weekly coaching for accelerated results, as well as instant membership into the Manifestor's Inner Circle online community. If you're ready to finally get unstuck and create the ultimate life success you know you're capable of, visit manifestorsguide.com. Use coupon code TMG today for 10% off, and we'll send the Manifestor's Guide to Ease system to your email right now. That's manifestorsguide.com.
All right, everybody, and welcome back. So we're talking about later in life successes and how you are never too old to have a new dream or to kind of start over. And we have an exciting guest on the show with us today, Miss Norie Hicks. She is a member of our online Inner Circle community and has done the Master Manifestor system and is still actively doing this with us. So welcome to the podcast, Norie.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is exciting. So tell us a little bit about yourself. And tell us, where you come from, a little bit about your background, and where you were before starting with us at TMG, just so we can get to know you a little bit.
Okay. Well, I'm older. I'm 69, and I'm a speech pathologist who I do online therapy, and I love it. That change has been great for me. How I came to this was I have a son who's very much into this. And in order for me to relate better to him and understand the concepts, I thought, well, I'm going to attempt this and try it. I was very skeptical. I'm a Christian, and this didn't seem to align at all with my beliefs. And yet I wanted to find out what this was all about. So that's why I began this journey, and I'm so glad I have done it.
Well, we're glad that you have too. We've thoroughly enjoyed you being in our community. You've definitely been open and shared a lot of, your personal story with everybody and your light bulb moments. And so tell us a little bit about what was, people don't necessarily jump into something like this if they're perfectly happy with the way things are going. This is about improvement and growth. So what were some of the things that you were unhappy with? What wasn't working in your life? And what did you desire to change and expand?
Because of COVID and just circumstances running up to that, both my husband and I got COVID. And because of that, he lost his job. And then because of that, we ended up moving. And I was basically resigned to the fact that, okay, I'm going to be working till I fall over and die. And, I was really negative. That's not me. That's not the way I grew up. It's not the way I lived my life for quite a long time. And then all of a sudden I'm not happy with my life. So starting this system, again, with some resistance in the sense that there were a lot of red flags for me, some terminology. And when I began to, through coaching, realize that it was very scientifically based, or it is. It's for everybody. I began to realize I hadn't really looked at specific goals in my life.
Yes.
And that was like a huge realization. And so to begin to specify goals and to even have to think about, well, what do I want? I mean, there was hope in the fact that I could still have goals and then still accomplish something. I am back to what I call my normal self. I have hope every day. And that's also part of my faith too.
I was going to ask, how is this? Because I know you came. Yeah. So first off, we always wanted to commend you for, you jumped in. We knew that you had said early on that I'm not so sure about this, guys, but this may not jive, as you said, but you came in already willing to think flexibly. And it was always fine.
Yes.
for you and anybody else and say, hey, this is not for me.
Yeah.
But even coming in with that, like, there was nothing ever to lose.
Exactly.
I would be curious just if you had anything to say about that. I've seen it with others that this ends up strengthening people's personal faiths. And they start seeing these principles within their faith. They were there all along.
Exactly.
Yes.
Oh, they're talked about. They're just in different terms. And the terminology, I mean, as a speech pathology, semantics, the meaning of words is a big deal to me. And so then it was like, do I have to redefine that? No, I just had to see the, positivity, the parallel poles, that you've got positive and negative. Well, I mean, that's in pretty much any faith, I think, but certainly in mine, that we're supposed to be grateful in everything. For me, I believe in God. And if God made everything, then all the universal laws are his as well. So then it is for everybody. And it's not about you have to believe this or you have to do anything. Nobody has to do anything. And you say it that way. I mean, I could have left the coaching and all of that at any time. I wouldn't have had to engage. I've known this, but not really given myself permission to do it, to be CEO of my life. I mean, we all are, but the realization that we are, whether we realize that or not, there's a huge responsibility with it, but then there's a
relief.
And we make choices every day, even if we think we're not making a choice. The choice is, I don't want to make a choice.
Absolutely.
So,
my legal background tells me there's a concept in the law, an omission or an action. Both have equal weight in the law.
And you know what? That's part of my faith as well. So it's just been huge for me.
Well, we appreciate you and your just openness and sharing, because it has definitely, we say this all the time, but the purpose, there's many purposes to what we do, but it's really to create an ecosystem of this. This podcast is a part of an ecosystem, the Manifestor's Guide, but a huge component of creating an ecosystem around you that will sustain your growth into the person that you want to become and to create the reality that you want to create is community. Yeah. And you learn from other people. And I know that, we do breakout rooms in our coaching and actually have small group time where people practice and commune with each other, and they do exercises together. And then we come back into the main group and discuss. It's really important to do that. And I know you have shared openly how much that has impacted you. And I love how active you are in the community with each one of these people. You're kind of a mentor in the community. And, you're the first person who jumps in and is as a moderator when we break out into the small groups. And it's just been wonderful to see you engage and be somebody who is speaking from, with age comes wisdom a lot of times. Yeah. And you're able to speak to people say, hey guys, yeah, we hope, right? But we're able to say, hey, don't do what I did. You've said that several times. Don't go down the exact same path that I did, because you can get it a lot earlier than I did. Yes. And that's been very impactful for a lot of our members. And that's what we're talking about today, that there is just because your life has gone a certain way up to this point doesn't mean that you can't course correct at any moment. And that's what I would love to talk about next is, what are some of your biggest areas of improvement after jumping on board with the Master Manifestor system with us? And what are some of the things that have surprised you the most about your light bulbs and your growth?
I am a very relational person and have been real positive, but in the recent past, I was like, how do you still have a connection with somebody, or a relationship, I should say, and detach? I mean, I've heard that, but I was like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know if that's even possible for me, because and again, some of the terminology I'm using now is something I wouldn't have used, but alignment with where another person is. I've never even thought of it that way, but now that I do, it's like, well, of course, not everybody's at the same place in life, but how do you do that? And when I began to realize it doesn't mean a disconnect, it just means
a detachment.
And it is very different. And I had used those terms, I think, synonymously, and thought that they were the same, and they're not at all. Realizing there were expectations.
Yes.
Yeah. And with expectations comes disappointments, with anybody. I don't care who it is. And with disappointments can become, you can get angry at somebody, and then you can blame, and all of that stuff is just such a waste of time. And yet that's kind of where I was, instead of realizing I still have choices. I can still make choices that are not necessarily the same as somebody that I still want to have a relationship with, but, and still be okay.
Sounds like you've been leaning into easing up on the specific expectations,
Absolutely.
making space for satisfaction instead. Does
Absolutely.
that sound right?
I am very much a more positive person. I'm more accepting. I used to be very accepting.
You've learned to stop making it about you.
Yes.
Well, and we talk about that a lot in the system and the coaching as well. We just did a couple of weeks ago. We talked about, perspective. Yep. And we talk about what's important to understand what a polarity grid is. People don't think of polarity in those terms. It's not negative meaning bad and positive being good, and I'm either on the bad side or the good side. That's a very limited mindset. We talk about expansive thinking, not just flexible. Flexible thinking is important, but expansive thinking is even more important, where you start to look at life as this three-dimensional grid, and how can you take a step to the right so you can take another step forward if you don't have a grid of steps to be able to move back and forth with. So you start to look at this as a completely different, and that's a whole nother topic, but I've seen so many light bulb moments within you where you're starting to see things in this bigger view. And you said a long time ago, I'm not a big picture person, and I can see the shift where you're starting to see things from a greater perspective, and you seem so much more light and easy about things, and you bring things to the table. You have goals. You're a speech pathologist and you have a master's degree, and you actually do a lot of this stuff as far as the multisensory components and stuff of what we do. And it's been wonderful listening to you contribute from your professional perspective on why some of this stuff actually works scientifically and why it's so important.
In English is an auditory language. There's no meaning attached without a visual component. When you're looking at a word or a letter, it doesn't mean anything. A B is a circle with a line, that kind of thing. But when you put a sound to it, it makes, we get into phonics, and then you put it together and you make a word. And when you make a word, what does that picture bring to your mind? So we think in pictures and we talk in words. Well, if you don't have a picture with it, which is why your system works so well, is because as you're coaching, there's visuals, there are pictures, there's text. And then when we break out into the groups, we're doing it. So that's kinesthetic. In feeding therapy, I've talked about, some kids they're afraid to drink water because they don't have a good swallow. So how important water is and how much our bodies are made up of water. Mm-hmm. The majority of our whole system, our whole body functioning is made up of water. And so Dewey, you had brought that up, and then Charlie, you had, in the course of all that, we talked about how our words can affect water, and the scientific.
These are experiments in the molecular structure of water and how it changes depending upon the intention of the word. Yes, and that's what you're referencing.
And then Charlie, you had said, well, think about it. If you're speaking negative things about yourself or your world, how that affects your body, because you've got so much of it that's water.
We're made up of water. Yes.
That just blew me away. And I thought, oh my gosh,
it's mind blowing.
Intention to not do that anymore. It's helped me become the positive person that I've been in the past.
Yes.
To change the way I talk and the way I think.
Well, we always say it's about intention. If your intention is to feel good, then where does that exist on the spectrum of emotional ease is what we call it in our system, right? We have this spectrum where it shows you where do you feel and where is it up or down on the positive or negative poles. And it's very easy to see that if you're setting an intention to feel one way, but you're speaking to the other, you're just not going to get there. If you have no intention of feeling good in life, you're not doing anything wrong by saying things that are or more negatively connotated. It's not about right or wrong. It's about what is your intention. If you're setting an intention, though, in a trajectory to feel good, to operate a certain way in life, to be joyful and happy and free, that exists just on the opposing pole of what you're speaking into existence. So you're not going to get there because it is just the beginning of your journey. You didn't have a lot of goals, but now you actually have some great goals and dreams and desires, and you're excited about them. I would love for you to share with the listeners some of the things that you're working on. What are your dreams now? What are some of the goals that you've created? What are you working on manifesting?
Well, I'd never ever thought about this, but writing children's books. I've got a couple of things, and I grew up in a very professional family, which is a neat thing, but business was never familiar to me as far as how do you do that. So it was like, well, I don't know how to do that. I'll never be a business person. And it's new, and it used to think, to even think that way was scary. And it's like, why is it scary? Well, because I don't know. And I wanted to know, I wouldn't venture into something if I didn't know the steps first, because as you had mentioned before, I'm not a big picture person or haven't been. And now it's like, I'm not stuck. I don't have to stay here and realize and think that I am not going anywhere. I'm just stuck till my end days. It's so fun to realize. I mean, I'm writing.
And you have a draft done, is that correct, of a book?
I do. Which will probably end up being more like 5 books because of the way I've written them. Yeah.
Yes, that's great. And that's phenomenal because of your profession and because of your experience, and that's another thing we've talked about before with your bigger light bulb for you is realizing that you have value in what you're giving to the world, that value exchange.
Yes.
Will you talk a little bit about that? That was a huge light bulb for you to go, wow, I actually have something to offer the world through stories and through writing because you have a lot of value.
A narrative is a huge piece of therapy for me, for the clinic where I work. So it was finding books at different levels that would aid in helping a child learn how to create a narrative. And so then I've got that background. So it's like, okay, then it's, character development, which is the mom in me, to realize I can put a lot of these pieces together and the concepts together. And I thought, well, it would help other speech pathologists.
It talks about in the Bible that we're created in the image of God. And if God's a creator, it's like we're here to create. He wants us to create and to continue to contribute and to do good in the world and to do great things and to help people and add value. And we teach that principle of value exchange. We want to be able to receive value because it opens the valve for us to give value. And we want to give value because it opens the other valve for us to receive. And that's polarity as well. It becomes a cyclical energy cycle. Exactly.
Well, and so often there's a focus on, and Norie, you were saying this a couple minutes ago, there's a focus on the set of details that you don't know what to do with or how to get done. And so you stop there. And I'm hearing in your story that your flexible thinking, your willingness to look into the bigger picture and just pull back the microscope and go, you know what? I'm a children's book author, and I published a series, and I'm so thrilled about it. And just starting there, and what I'm hearing you say are actually the details filling in. Even going from I want to write a children's book, and then allowing yourself to realize how certain parts of your life and your experience do fill in the gaps and come into play. And
I'm going for it. And here's another thing. It's, well, what if nobody ever read it or nobody liked it after that, whatever? I wrote a book.
Right. You've had other amazing light bulb moments and things that you're pursuing. You talked about starting a business and a business helping people with language and people who are actors and people who are doing performance and anything presentation skills. Starting to make some courses and do things like that. And so that's something you're also actively pursuing. And I remember we talked about a while ago. You had a little bit of a complex there with, and I think a lot of people can relate to this. A lot of our listeners, part of the complex was been part of your story your whole life that, well, I've never done that before. I don't know a lot about that. And so what would your advice be to somebody who is in that perspective right now? And what has your change been there with that way of thinking?
I mean, how are you ever going to know if you don't try? I'm a pathologist, not just a therapist, but voice therapy for pathologies, where somebody has a problem with their voice, whether it's a voice nodule. Singers get that. I'm a singer. I've been singing my whole life. I've sung professionally. So the more I've been coached to think about all those things, it's like, well, why would I think that I can't do that? It's putting a lot of that together and realize you've done so much of it.
For you, you're a great example of this. Your puzzle pieces have been on the table. You just didn't see how they fit together. And that's a part of why the community and the coaching is so important. So what would you say to people who are skeptics, people who might be over the age of 50, somebody who's starting a little later in life? What would you say to somebody who's skeptical of this? People like Ellie, who asked her question, what would you say to her?
Oh my gosh. This is for everybody. It's never too late. And I've known that, but I wasn't really applying it because of circumstances. And again, you've got choices in every circumstance. Live every moment as if it's your last, because every moment counts. But, there's always something to learn. Everybody in our community can say that they've never thought about most of this. And then the application in their lives, which is what you give us an opportunity to apply these principles and to understand the laws of the universal laws better. But it's got to be applied in our lives, and we can either choose to do that or not. And we at least get the opportunity to do it while we're online coaching. But then we also have the opportunity to ask for more individualized coaching. Y'all are so available and so helpful, and that's what you want to do. And I know all of us are so very appreciative of that. You've helped everyone.
That's what we're here to do.
But it's amazing, to take away the blocks, to fill in the gaps. I love the goal or gap.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about a goal and how we can work that out? Or do you want to talk about a gap that you're having that's keeping you maybe from being able to move ahead? So it's just been huge. It has been life-changing. Nobody has to stay stuck.
Well, where do you see some of your goals? Where do you see yourself? I would love to have you come back on the podcast here, in a little while. And because we would just love to keep up to date with what you're doing. And I'm sure the listeners would too, because this is something you're growing in and you're actively manifesting. You've got these new goals, these new businesses, the new books. I would love for you to come back and promote the book when it's done. Absolutely love that. So where do you see yourself by the next time you come back on the show? What are some of these things that you're actively manifesting?
I hope I can, I want to take the book that I
corrective speech, love it.
By the time that we meet again, have already written or separated it into the different character books that I see happening with. I want to have already some voiceover gigs for me, because that's so exciting to me. I'm really passionate about that. That's just so exciting. And that's not something I really ever had thought that I could do. And why the heck not?
Well, and just so everybody knows, we actually, because one of Norie's manifestations was to do voiceover, we actually had her do the voiceover for the opening of this very podcast. So the person you're hearing every episode is Norie saying, welcome to the Manifestor's Guide. And if you love it as much as we do, it just goes to show everybody how great you are at something you didn't even think you could do in the first place. And we love listening to it every single week. So I love that, the listeners already know who you are because they know your voice because you've done the voiceover for the intro every single episode.
Well, that was fun. That was fun. And it just, I want to do so much more of that. So, and there is also a possibility. I mean, I'm open to it. I'm not sure. Again, I don't know what the steps are, but I've created a lot of materials over the years, but especially for online speech therapy for my kiddos. And I want to share that.
Well, we always say be the change you want to see in the world. Create where you see the gap. Don't just sit around and wait for it. And it sounds like that's what you're aligning with. You are creating something in the world, which is really where we find purpose. We find purpose in the creation process and in contributing, giving that out to the world and creating more of that, but through other people. It also creates more of that in my own experience as well. So thank you for joining us today, Norie. This has been a fantastic conversation. And I am so excited for you to come back onto the program and to update us on where you are in this journey. You've already come so far. I've seen such a massive change in you.
In a short time.
And for every single person who's listening, if you have somebody in your life, whether it's a parent or your aunt or a friend or a colleague or coworker, anybody who has been in this position that Norie's been talking about in this episode, where you kind of feel like, I'm giving up. I'm in a place where I can't start over. Or it's too late. Share this episode because this is such an inspirational story. And just the message of this particular episode is it is never too late to dream a new dream, to have new desires, to start something new, and to contribute to the world. You are important. What you desire has value, and you are it. And we're excited to be able to contribute in that value exchange of what you have to offer the world. So, all right.
Thanks so much for having me. I just really love you all and appreciate what you are all about.
Well, absolutely. And we love having you, here with us today, but also just as a part of our community. And we look forward to checking in with you in the future. So you guys stay tuned because next week we have an incredible episode. It's called The Cure for Chaos. So we're talking about, are we creating our own suffering as people? We kind of talked about that a little bit today with Norie. Are we kind of the cause of our own blocks and suffering? But we're going to break that down. What does that actually look like? So an incredible episode next week. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Like we said before, share this with people that you think will find value in this episode because it creates more and more of that cyclical energy flow and more value in your own life. And we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for joining. Bye-bye.